It's
Simmons. That's pretty much all I know.
J.K. Simmons and it's Stephen Yen from The Walking Dead.
Oh,
Who Glenn? He plays Glenn.
Glenn.
He's
I
the main
remember Stephen
character.
Glenn.
But there's a bunch of as I was watching it, I was like, oh my gosh, there's a bunch of like big celebrities who just have like small parts in it. Like Mark Hamill was in it.
Wow,
Um,
Let me see.
really?
This fucking
yeah,
computer
there's
is
what's his name? Rick and the guy who plays Rick Sanchez. Rick.
Justin Roiland?
Yeah, he's in an episode. Like, there's a bunch of celebrities who are just kind of play like one-off characters in
That's
the
pretty cool.
show. So yeah, I like it a lot.
All right, and I'm just gonna test the audio really quick, Jared. So if I'm talking,
Okay,
sorry, I'm talking
talking,
very quick.
talking, talking at regular speaking voice. This is my speaking voice.
Perfect.
Speaking. Is it good?
Can you hear us?
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
I
I
can
can
hear
hear us
myself.
on the
Mm,
stream. This is funny because
nice.
I'm definitely just cobbling this together. This is not how this is supposed to go.
The cobble stream.
You can hear yourself?
Cobble stream. Hmm.
Only when you had the phone
Yeah,
up
you
there.
have the phone
could
right
reach
next to the
microphone.
mic.
Oh, I just it's just bleed. That's all. It's fine.
I think I'm fucking shit up. Hold on.
I don't think you're
No,
fucking
no,
shit, bro.
nothing is fucked. Nothing is fucked, dude.
Wait, there shouldn't be bleed though because you're not coming out of the speakers.
Yeah, dumbass. He was hearing himself from your phone.
This shouldn't be picking up my phone. It can barely pick us up.
Oh well, I
you were
think it's
standing
coming
right
from the
next to
mic.
It was
None of
bleed
that.
from there to there.
From here to here?
Yes.
It had to be. Because Jeremy couldn't hear what he was saying.
It's gotta
at
be the phone.
moment. He was hearing what he was saying like 30
In a
seconds
delay.
ago.
I know, but my worry is that because of this rig, it's coming out of here and back into my computer, so he's hearing himself.
But he could only hear it for a second.
I know that's the delay on the YouTube.
Fuck's sake,
I know.
whatever.
Oh, I don't know. It seems fine to me. I could have sworn it was just phone noise. Know what I mean?
El Fono de Noiso.
Okay. Well,
Oh, no,
if,
dinner
if you're,
feeling
if
today.
you're
Daryl,
are you
quick,
good now?
quick question. Yeah, I'm good.
Yes, he's good.
Okay.
When are you? How long are you out
Well,
in Freedom Land?
We come back in. We come back on Saturday.
Damn. Okay. Because guess who has Friday off this
You
week?
do, of course.
Yeah.
Sucks.
Yeah, I know. So dumb.
Hopefully, well, what about, maybe and then you'll probably be working next week. So,
Yeah, I know. That's just my luck.
well, what about Thursdays?
Oh, those don't stay in your
'Cause-
YouTube.
Well,
Tony
I mean,
says
Thursdays are about as safe as Fridays are, which
Oh,
is
okay, yeah.
not very safe. But it just so happens that I have Thursday and Friday off this week.
sucks, of course, and I'm here. So,
Yeah, I can see. I don't know if I have the schedule for the next week. Let me see. That's the 20.
You want to like sit right next.
The
to
28th is this. Oh, that's this Friday. Okay, so I don't have it for next week yet.
No.
But yeah, pretty dumb.
we'll just play it. Yeah, no, perfect timing.
Yeah, as usual.
We'll just have to play it by ear
I
like
don't
we
mind
always do.
waiting,
So,
so.
is
Yeah.
it working?
Yeah,
That's working.
sounds like it's working.
I don't know how I'm going to do the graph, though.
I'll let you take over to explain the graph. That's fine.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Nice.
All right, let's start this shit, dude. Okay, so this is the We Like This podcast where this is the very.
Oh, are we? We're already live?
We're live. We've been live. I had.
Oh,
I had to
no
check it
way!
somehow,
How
so-
dare!
Why don't
I had to-
Jeez,
I had to
never
check it
tells
through my
us
phone.
when we're live.
Oh,
Yeah.
live, guys.
Thanks for the. Oh, there it is. Yeah, I see it now. Okay. Well, I just need to
All right,
refresh the
perfect.
page here.
Okay, cool. So this is the very ragtag version of it. I had a much better idea in my head, but this week I'm joined by myself, Daniel Waters, we got Ben Nickerson, Daryl Waters, and Doug Waters, new to the podcast.
Yes.
A lot of waters this
Yeah,
year.
a lot of Waters is.
A lot of
We're
waters.
basically drowning in over here.
It's like that picture of that girl with the guys in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Which one?
The one on Reddit. That's the only one you need to know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you Reddit people.
I can't say anymore because we're live.
Okay, so we did Tenet. So
We did do Tenet.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to talk about this movie for a while. So Ben and I initially saw this in the theaters when it first came out. We rented out, or Ben rented out technically because he paid a lot of money for it.
It was only.
Oh,
I
right.
think it was. I think it cost me about $400. But I also had a date. I took a girl and bought her ticket and stuff. But
Well, that's like 350 of the dollars right there.
Right.
It was a lot of money.
it was pretty expensive, but it was cool. We had a theater that could seat 20, and I think about 11 people came. Yeah, it was pretty solid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it had to be worth seeing this movie, as I assume all Christopher Nolan movies. It's it's got to be worth at least seeing it in theaters, right?
Had to be better. In the
What'd you think?
I thought it was significantly better in the
Yeah.
theater. Well, I saw it in the theater and I saw it on a plane. So
Oh, okay. So
Which
those
is
are
better
polar
for you.
opposites.
Yeah. And
That's
actually,
hilarious.
so what's amazing though is I feel like I understood the movie a lot better when I watched it on the plane because I didn't have any earbuds. It was grungier than this. I didn't have any way to listen to it, so I actually just muted my iPad and read the subtitles.
That's sometimes
Oh, you
better.
probably did understand it better since the sound mixing is ass.
Yeah, you were talking about the sound mixing before we got
Yeah.
started, and I was like, well, I don't remember that being a problem because I just read the movie basically. I basically
Yeah.
read a visual novel. It was perfectly acceptable.
Good.
Was he?
I saw it in theaters twice actually.
Hmm.
For the 1 month that theaters were open out here, I saw it 2 different times with 2 different groups of people, and it was fun. It was fun seeing it in theaters. I mean, it's a visually really interesting movie.
Yeah.
But both times, I thought it could be a fluke the first time, but then the second time too, the bass, and I'm a bass guy. I like bass. I like bass as much as the next guy. It was so loud, and I couldn't hear any of the dialogue, and they're throwing so much information at you every 2 seconds. It's hard to keep up, and you can't hear anything because the dialogue's buried.
Yeah.
So all the exposition, all the stuff that might be important,
Might be.
you don't hear any of it.
Yeah. Well, Daryl, what did you think? You watched it at home, right?
Yeah, I was just really bored with it.
Were you able to hear any of the dialogue though?
Yeah, but I always have the subtitles on because I'm old and I can't hear anymore now.
Hmm.
And the way they
Wish I could have done that.
the way they mix everything and everything's compressed, it's
Mhm.
always super loud action, really quiet dialogue. It's really annoying.
Yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
that.
But
Actually.
I've definitely reached a point where I'm too deaf to not have the subtitles on almost all the time.
I learned that from watching anime. I enjoy subtitles these
Me
days.
too.
I actually I was on vacation a couple weeks ago with my family, and we were watching Umbrella Academy.
Yeah.
And I turned on the subtitles, and my dad was like, "Turn those off! It's distracting me. I can't pay attention to the movie." And I was like, "This is helping me actually understand what's going on."
Like sometimes I miss dialogue,
Yeah.
but you'll catch it because of the. And now I find myself depending on it, like because I'm getting older and deafer. So it'll be sometimes I'll have it turned off, and I'm like, just turn that thing back on because I can't tell what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's many problems with this movie. One thing I'll give it some ups first. Let's start with that.
Yeah. We'll start with the.
Instead of
Okay.
me just shitting all over it like I normally do.
Yeah.
You can definitely tell it's a Christopher Nolan film, which is cool, right? The fact that he's got that style when you're watching it, and even though it's a different composer,
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
right? That was cool. So that's what I like about it's definitely when you're watching. Well, this is clearly a Christopher Nolan film.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys. Those directors, a lot of the same actors too, which is cool. I understand that you work with some good people. You want to work with them again.
Yeah, he loves Robert Pattinson. People say that Robert Pattinson looks like Christopher Nolan when he was younger, which is an interesting.
Yeah, I actually saw side by side. They do look really similar.
Really?
Yeah, apparently they're Robert Pattinson is basically Christopher Nolan's son.
But Denzel Washington's kid ain't Denzel Washington.
See,
No, he's
we were
not.
talking about this a little bit. I like that dude.
I like that guy a lot too.
I think he has zero charisma.
I think that he was doomed to fail from the start because of the movie. Not
Yeah.
necessarily. I think he did a pretty good job acting in this movie, considering his character arc, which is, I live in the world and I don't want it to end.
Yeah, I mean,
And I'm willing to throw all
Yeah.
that away for this this super hot rich lady that I just met.
made no
Yeah.
sense to me.
Did you
That's
guys-
the problem. Is I felt no reason why he would. I didn't understand. I felt I like later when it's way late in the movie him and Robert Pattinson like high five and share a moment like they're friends, and I was like, oh wait, these guys are friends? I had no idea.
Right.
The whole time he's like knocking himself out for this wife. I don't know why he cares so much. I don't know who he is or what he's doing. I don't know what his motivation is. I know nothing about him.
Yeah, he's not being sent there by
Anybody.
an organization or something. He's there on his own volition.
Who's the guy he's
No,
talking
it's,
to at the beginning?
Tenet, right? Isn't the organization that he's working for called Tenet?
Yeah, the organization he's working for is called Tenet, and Denzel Washington's kid
started it, but not yet.
Yeah, so he started Tenet.
So fucking.
But
right,
in the
right.
So I guess that we should explain. Well, I should explain really quick because I was assigned just like primer to understand the time travel of this and give a quick rundown. So maybe I can do that now. Yeah, really quick. I have a graph, but before I pull up the graph, let me just give a quick breakdown of the general way that the movie works. So essentially, Christopher Nolan's idea, it seems, was to make a movie that was what he would call palindromic, but what I would call a giant horseshoe. So essentially, it starts in Kiev at this opera, and then the protagonist, who's literally not named, he calls himself the protagonist several times in the movie, which I thought was pretty fucking like that's a lot of hubris to carry on your fucking shoulder. Yeah, I'm the protagonist.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Guy.
Actually, he does call himself.
It's really off-putting to me.
It's in the subtitles to protagonist.
Yeah, Mr. Protagonist. But anyways,
he's the protagonist.
So fucking dumb. But so he fucks up his mission. He's supposed to get somebody out of this opera house in Ukraine, and then he gets captured by the bad Ukrainians. We don't know who these guys are. And then he takes a suicide pill, which isn't really a suicide pill. And it was just a test to demonstrate his worthiness of joining Tenet. So then he meets Robert Pattinson, and he tracks down these special bullets, which are inverted. And there's all this bullshit about how like these things the entropy has been reversed, which means that these items are moving backwards in time. So even like if you like shoot a gun, like actually the bullet goes into the gun, but because it's just reversed entropy. So technically you pulled the trigger on the gun, but you did it in the opposite order that you would expect to experience it or whatever. It's like if entropy is going backwards and all the other entropy is going forwards, like it's literally not possible to comprehend that. So things move backwards. And then he talks to like 12 people before he like makes it to Mumbai. And then he talks to some more people, finds out where these bullets are coming from, and it turns out it's this guy Sater, who is this like Russian whatever dude. So his wife, so he has to go talk to somebody else. His wife is being blackmailed by Sater, and so he goes and talks to the wife. The wife's I'm being blackmailed.
Really quickly, hold on a second.
Yeah.
The part that I thought was super important to really bring you into this film to figure out what the fuck was going on and explain it.
Go ahead.
Is super fucking fast, and they whiz right by it. So he shows up and talks to the French girl from Harry Potter, and she barely explains anything.
Yeah.
And then he leaves.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this should have been like 20 goddamn minutes. We really
that's where he first.
Well, that was so. What I was trying to say
is talking about Daryl.
Dude, they brush right past it. I think I feel like he didn't have it figured out.
No, I think actually that was I think that was a red herring because you're talking about the reversed entropy items. And honestly, I think maybe I don't want to get too much into my opinions, but I think that the reverse entropy items are a little bit much because they take away from what the actual subject of the film is, which is reverse entropy people, i.e. people that are moving backwards in time. But essentially what happens is like all this shit, like, you know, basically what's his name, John David Washington, right?
Something like that.
He goes and talks to like a bunch of people, and then eventually he finally meets the wife of Sater, who's the arms dealer and the primary antagonist of the film. And she's like, hey, I love my son, and I can't get away from this crazy arms dealer asshole who I'm married to because he's blackmailing over the fact that I'm an art thing.
All very complicated too.
Yeah. She appraises art, and she lied to Sater about the art, and so she sold him basically phony art. And so she's like, as long as he has this phony art, me and my son can't get away from this guy, and that's no good. And John David Washington's like, well, you're kind of pretty, so I'm gonna work with Robert Pattinson.
I'm gonna risk it all.
Yeah, I'm gonna work with Robert Pattinson to destroy that art piece and get you out for whatever. I mean, who knows?
Why this whole part doesn't make any sense. Why would you totally risk your life, involve your life with someone you barely know, and honestly is not pretty enough to do all this for?
So, we go to the airport.
Doesn't make sense.
We go to the airport. They crash a plane in the building. Whatever. Blah blah blah. It's a really cool scene. But the main takeaway here is that they fight two people, and they're very confused by it. And then after this, they are basically forced into a car chase. And John David Washington thinks he has like a truce with Sator, but in reality, Sator is backstabbing him from the future by going backwards in time. And by the time he catches up with, by the time John David Washington catches up with where Sator started going back in time, the girl gets reverse shot. And it's at this point in the movie that the first, like, we have been going forwards in time and we have seen people coming backwards in time at us, and it's been very scary, and, like, we don't know what the fuck is going on. But it's at this point where we discover that there's these turnstiles that exist, and the whole concept of the turnstile is you go in one end, you come out the other end backwards. And now you'll go backwards in time until you find another turnstile, and then you'll go forwards. And so for John David Washington, literally the whole plot of the movie is Opera House, Mumbai, airport, car chase, turnstile, backwards in time, car chase, and then he still fucks up. It turns out he couldn't stop. And there's like this whole thing with a MacGuffin. There's a whole MacGuffin in the movie, which is like this algorithm, which are just like these weird shapes of metal that Sator is trying to collect and then bury underground to hide for the future. And so John David Washington's trying to get one of those pieces from Sator, going backwards in time, and then eventually he fucks up, fails, and he finds out that Sator is actually going to bury these things in the past around the same time that the Opera House shit happened. And so now John David Washington is like, okay, Robert Pattinson, me and you, and this army of people that work with Tenet, I guess, we just got him on the payroll.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah, we're all going to go backwards in time to the point where Sator was burying this thing. We're going to go past before they got buried, and then we're going to do a lobster pincer checkmate where he moves his pawn forward and I put my bishop here. No, so basically like...
Wow.
The first team is going to attack forwards, and then the second team is going to wait until the attack is done and then attack backwards, and it's going to be this whole thing. My favorite part about this scene, of course, is that like there's not even like bad guys that you can really see on screen. It's just a bunch of these soldiers shooting and like blowing shit up.
I had no concept of who they were fighting.
Yeah, it's like,
Nope.
I think the implication is that it's Sator's like mercenaries or whatever. But it's a very simple film, right? Like, aside from, like, the fact that the writing sucks, for John David Washington, it's literally, I go forward till the end of the car chase, and then I go backwards and I experience the car chase again or whatever, and I make it all the way backwards to this other place that's it's happening at the same time as the Opera House, and I'm just, like, going to war with Sator's mercenaries or whatever to try to get this MacGuffin. Like, it's not a complicated plot when you break it down at a high level. But... I think the interesting thing and the thing that like kind of makes the movie feel really complicated is actually not John David's plot and his like timeline. It's actually Neil's plot, and I think understanding Neil's plot is kind of the key to quote unquote getting what's going on.
Is that
that's Robert Pattinson. So
that's what I noticed the second time I watched it.
So I actually made a graph for Neil's timeline specifically. So I'm gonna kick Dana off the podcast here. And I'm going to pull up this graph, and hopefully this will kind of help explain everything. So I think...
will it make the movie better?
Well, probably not. Probably not. Okay,
it's all in that one stick
figure. That ship has sailed.
Yeah.
All right. So this is like the shittiest graph I could make to show what's happening with Neil. But we'll start at the opera because it's the first time that we see him. When John David Washington is at the opera, Neil is actually currently traveling backwards in time. At least that's the implication, because Neil is from the far future. And so in order to get to the past, it works the same way as Primer. If you remember, you basically have to spend as much time as it took to get to the future to get that far into the past. That means if you want to travel 8 hours back in time, you have to be traveling back in time for 8 hours. So the opera, it's implied that Neil actually traveled back in time from the distant future to this opera and then saves John David Washington's life from one of the Ukrainian soldiers, or not soldiers, but police officers who recognizes him. And then at some point he turns around, and now he's no longer traveling backwards in time. He's actually moving forwards in time. He introduces himself to John David Washington somewhere in here where he meets him in Mumbai.
I didn't get that.
Shut up, Siri. And then,
Right, me too.
yeah, and then he does the whole airport thing. And if you remember in the airport thing, there's two people that they're fighting. So Neil is fighting a guy, and John David Washington is fighting a guy. And there's this whole confusing thing where Neil rips off the mask of the guy he's fighting, and then he lets him go.
Lets him go.
And everybody's like, what the fuck's going on? And then fast forward, we have the car chase, whatever. After the car chase happens, we decide to go backwards in time, and we make it back to the airport. And it turns out that John David Washington, this is a cool part of the movie, actually. John David Washington is both guys. And this kind of highlights how the time travel works, because essentially he needed to go back in time to get to the turnstile, and then he needed to go forwards in time out of the turnstile. So there's a moment where he is currently going backwards in time into it and forwards in time out of it. And so to the onlooker, the people that aren't just like living their lives normally, it looks like two dudes come out of the turnstile at once.
Right. One
guy going forwards and the other guy moving backwards. But in reality, it's just like, you know, a weird timey-wimey effect where there's two John David Washingtons existing at the same time. And so that's what actually happened. That's why Neil lets the guy go over here, is because he rips off the mask and he's like, oh, my partner. Okay, cool. Go do whatever you're doing. Meanwhile, the other John David Washington is moving backwards to the point where he got turnstile in the first place. And that happened over here at the car chase. So John David Washington is moving in this direction, and there's another John David Washington over here at the airport who's fighting him, and he's moving in this direction. So that's all that really means. It's weird conceptually, but like it's just there's two of them. One of them's moving backwards. Neil, though, he's moving backwards in time with everybody, and at the very end, what happens during the finale is he's told that he needs to be part of the team that's moving backwards. So he's waiting for John David Washington to finish his assault the forward way, and then he starts going backwards. As he's going backwards, this means the assault has already happened and he's moving backwards, like doing shit. He sees that shit's not going well, and so he decides to turnstile again and go forwards. When he goes forwards, he catches up to John David Washington, and it's at the end of the battle, but John David Washington's like, hey man, somebody with the same backpack as you, basically saved my life. He took a bullet for me. And this tells Robert Pattinson, like, oh fuck, I have to turnstile again and move backwards in time and get shot and die. And so when he dies, he was actually moving backwards in time. So he never goes forwards in time from this point. So he's literally moving backwards when he dies. But it's over here in finale 3. That's the end of the movie. Because this is where John David Washington and Robert Pattinson have that moment where Robert Pattinson is basically like, hey, you're a really good friend. And the reason that he's a really good friend is because if I was to draw another arrow, there's basically an arrow from like off screen all the way to the opera, and he was just moving backwards in time this whole way to get to the opera, which implies that he's known John David Washington for a long time because he's buddies with him in the future. And there's actually some suggestions that the blonde chick's son, Maximilian, is Neil.
Yes.
And so John David Washington basically like kidnaps his kid and turns him into a fucking Secret Service agent or whatever.
Gets worse.
Well, that's the glass half empty way of looking at it.
Yeah. So essentially, the time travel is not actually as complicated as they present it in the movie, because all you really need to think about is like sometimes people are moving backwards in time, sometimes people are moving forwards in time, and there can be overlap, but the primary thing is every time you use a turnstile, there will at some point be 3 of you, right? Because there's the person who is going forwards in time to get to the turnstile. That's person 1. There's the person who's going backwards in time. That's the person who, literally person 1 is going to catch up and become person 2, because it's just a zigzag. But at some point, they're going to pass each other. And then there is person 3, and this is the person who went into the turnstile again to go forwards in time again. And so essentially it's person 1, and then person 2 passing person 1, and then person 3 passing person 2 and person 1 at the same time. So at some point there will have to be 3 of you existing at the same time if
Right.
you're going to use the turnstile twice to like to actually fully time travel. And this is also not super complicated because they choose the easiest type of time travel, which is that fate is real. This is time crimes. So if you remember time crimes, there was like 4 of the same guy, and with all the information that he had, he could not change anything, because even though there were multiple versions of him existing at the same time, he was basically doomed to do the things that were happening in the movie, because those things had already happened. So basically he passes himself doing something. By the time he gets to that point again, after he travels back in time, he's forced to do that thing. He has no choice. It's literally going to happen, and it's going to happen because of the knowledge that has been passed on to person 1. There is no such thing as like multiple branches of time travel or anything like that.
Yeah, you can't change what has already happened.
Yeah,
So,
Right.
and that's it.
Yeah, so we should talk about the plot, though.
Yeah,
So,
the
and
plot is not
yeah.
particularly good.
So I did like the time travel aspect of it, but I will say that the ultimate flaw with this movie is that they threw away the initial, like the first concept that they teach you. And the first time that they teach you this concept is in the beginning, in the opera house, when the guy shoots the bullet backwards back into the gun and kills that dude for Luke, John, Matthew, and Mark. What's his name?
John David Washington.
That guy. And
Make sure his name is John David
I
Washington.
just looked at it was John David.
okay.
Is it?
So
Okay.
and then kills that dude, and you're like, whoa, okay, that guy just unfired a bullet. Okay, that's cool. And then
Mm-hmm.
when they're teaching you the entropy with like the inverted items, they're setting it up as a power.
Yeah.
That's the fatal flaw, is because now they never go back to that, and they never use these reversed items. And so I think this is like, I think they introduced the concept of like the time travel in one way, and then completely undid it by doing the turnstile thing.
I don't know why they had the reverse entropy items in the first place. My
If they got rid
takeaway
of that,
was,
they would
yeah,
have been better.
I think if they didn't have the reverse entropy items, then they also would have been better. I think they tried to use it as like a way, and to your point, yeah, the scientist talks about it for like 20 seconds, and I think Christopher Nolan was probably thinking like, well, this stuff like isn't that important. It's just to like kind of tease you towards like the ultimate thing, which I want to show off, which is these turnstiles.
Well, it's trying,
But I don't
it's
think
trying
you
to get you in the idea that shit's going to be running backwards. For
Yeah.
whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I think
That's
that was,
how I took it.
I-
Yeah.
Is
But-
here's
yeah.
some reverse
But
bullets.
he
Here's
learns,
yeah.
he learns how to unfire them. I was like, oh, cool. All right, they're gonna do some
That-
cool
that
like,
was-
time killing stuff in real time. But
It was
with
just a
these
time
reverse
travel
items.
movie. Just leave it
Yeah.
time travel movie then.
Yeah,
Don't complicate it with this thing that we now have to, that we're trying to spend the whole movie trying to figure out and understand.
yeah.
Right.
Which is why you don't understand it. Like you're saying, it's just a fucking time travel movie. So just leave it at that.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's not even
I
a
would have okay
particularly
with time travel. I love time travel.
It's not even particularly complicated time travel,
Yeah.
right? It's literally just like the main character's arc is just a big horseshoe.
You complicated it by having this entropy bullshit, which doesn't enhance. Well, and good on him for trying something different and trying something new with a time travel film. But at this point, you know, it should have been like, fuck it, let's just make it a regular time travel movie.
There is some.
It's what it is.
There is
so-
some
Yeah.
fun stuff with just another up for the movie. There's some really fun stuff.
But I mean,
with
like
the-
again, like the main character, I don't understand any of his motivation at all for anything.
Yeah.
And this, and I was talking about this with Danon. So much shit happens in this movie because it's, and I'm a big fan of cool, for no reason, but it was painfully evident that like, how are we gonna break into this thing? I don't know. We're gonna crash an airplane, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
At least in the third Batman movie, they crash the airplane for a reason. You know.
Oh, right.
Crashing this plane. It all
Yeah.
made sense why they were
Yeah,
doing
he's
it.
crashing the plane because the guy.
Exactly. They take
Well,
the blood, move to the guy.
Yeah.
You know, they're trying
It's
to
funny,
hide
though-
stuff. This you have the plane crashing. You have, how are we going to get in this building? Oh, we're going to fucking bungee jump from a, wait, what?
We're gonna reverse bungee jump.
And
Yeah.
and still knock guys out like you normally would if you were coming through the back way. It was all
Right.
stuff. It was movie stuff. It was stuff.
Well,
for the
there's a
movie.
big problem too with the first half of the movie, which is not the. Well, I guess like there's the first act. That's a really cool scene with him trying like being a CIA operative or whatever, and then like some mystery stuff happens. But then it's literally John David Washington needs to talk to about 12 people before the plot can get started.
Yeah.
He talks to
Yes.
Robert Pattinson. Well, he
gotta
talks
talk
to
to-
the guy on the boat, and then he talks to Robert Pattinson in
Michael
Mumbai.
Caine.
And yeah,
Michael Caine.
well, he doesn't even talk to Michael
Talk to
Caine yet.
Mike-
He talks
Mi-
to
Mi-
he
Michael
talks to
Caine.
the guy, but then it turns out it's actually the girl Priya that he's supposed to talk to. It's like big reveal.
Oh, the
It's-
arms dealer lady. Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
it's not the husband, it's the wife, and then he leaves,
Uh-huh.
and she tells him to go talk to Michael Caine. Then Michael Caine tells him to get a better suit, and he gets a better suit, and then he talks to the girl, and then the
Oh.
girl's like, I can get you an audience with the guy, and then he's like, okay, I'm gonna go talk to Sater, or whatever, and then he talks to Sater, and then finally, the movie can actually happen. It's like, Jesus Christ, I can't believe you, like, the first half of the first act is just exposition of John David Washington talking to people.
That doesn't clear anything up, doesn't make, like I said, it's like,
Complicates it.
he barely knows this woman, yet he's willing to risk his whole life for her.
Yeah.
What, because she sold her husband some fake art? I still don't
I don't-
understand.
Because,
What the
well,
fuck
I
is
always,
going
I
on
mean, I assumed
with that shit?
it was, and not that this is a strong motivation, but I always assumed it was because when she sits at the dinner table and she's talking to him before the goon squad shows up, she mentions that it's not just her that's trapped in the situation, but it's also her son.
Right.
And so the implication is that it's like a mother and her son that are trapped. Basically, the motivation is I'm trying to save a mother and her son from like an abusive, blackmailed,
Right,
you know,
and Sater
situation.
is the arms dealer who eventually they figure out is trying to help the future destroy the past, or whatever.
Right.
Because he's done
Like,
anyway.
I think it's kind of funny because his whole thing is, well, I want to pull this woman out of this horrible situation that she's blackmailed into, and this guy's abusive. He's also like a supervillain,
Yeah.
Right.
but that's not his big crime is that he's blackmailing
He's a jerk,
that he's a
If
jerk.
he was like nice to his wife, I feel like John David Washington wouldn't even try to stop him.
Like, yeah, this guy is a legit, like, you know, supervillain basically, and it seems like John David Washington is really just in it to take him down because he's a jerk. Because he mistreats his wife.
It's not enough.
Yeah.
It's not enough to propel the whole story, which is what it's sort of set up to be, but it's not. Like, and there's zero.
Mhm.
What's it called when two people like each other?
Chemistry.
Movies?
Chemistry.
Zero chemistry with him and the wife. So it's like, okay, so if it's for love or something, well, let's set that up then. Let's don't.
Right,
It's never
right.
even implied. You never feel anything between these two, so you don't understand why this guy's gonna risk his whole life just because the guy's a douche and because she's got a kid and stuff.
Yeah.
And they're I feel like there would still be a better way to do this.
Yeah.
than to go backwards in time, do all this nonsense.
Well, they should have definitely, and by they I mean, you know, the writers on the film and Christopher Nolan should have spent more time basically writing a plot, because like it's almost the same exact problem that I had with Primer, which is like, yeah, I mean the time travel is, you know, it holds water. It's like it's all perfectly executed, and there's nothing that I can just say like, oh, this time travel shit doesn't make sense. I think some of the entropy items I have questions about, but like, yeah, or like if you like, what happens if you like, you know, poop before you get into the turnstile? Like, does that mean that like when you go backwards in time,
Oh,
it's
that's
like
a
the
great
poop
question.
gonna like suck into your butt?
Do you have reverse shits?
Yeah.
Ooh, that would be.
reverse
That would be
shit?
I've had reverse shits. It's
So-
not pretty.
I mean,
paradox.
if there's reverse bullets, there's definitely reverse shits.
Can you imagine?
So
Reverse wiping your reverse shit?
yeah.
Could you poop and then go in a turnstile and come out clean?
There's also a big problem with that science scene. I think the science scene should have just been cut from the movie completely, because like the implication is that reverse entropy items work because basically they're going backwards in time, so interacting with them happens backwards. But like it doesn't sit right with me that John David Washington is able to pick up a reverse bullet
It doesn't make any
backwards,
sense. Yeah.
because either he picks it up and it's just a reverse entropy item that like it probably would feel weird to hold, or he picked up the bullet at some point and dropped it, and then it got reversed, and then he was like, you know, picking it up backwards at that point. Or
I'm just
something
glad he's
like
wearing
that.
a glove during that too.
Yeah, thank God.
Big
Yes.
fucking Falcon glove for that. And you're like, what is?
yeah.
what are we talking about here? What is happening?
I think that was a mistake. I don't think it actually. It doesn't
didn't
lend
help.
itself to understanding
It didn't
time
help.
travel. It's just another fucking person that he's talking to, which is he talks to way too many people already.
Yeah.
So I think the first quarter of this movie really doesn't do itself any favors, and probably should have been trimmed down pretty significantly for
Well, the movie,
content.
yeah, and the movie's fairly long,
2.5
so
hours.
you know it could have used some
Everybody's
trimming.
gotta stop this.
They shouldn't even had a scientist. They should have just been
Yeah.
like, there's these. I don't fucking know how that bullet went backwards through that guy. That's fucking crazy. But here's what kind of
And-
bullet
and-
it is.
The thing is, the scientist lady, she even says, like, she knows a little bit about this shit, but she even tells him, like, yeah, we don't fully get it. She tells
And she
him
also
that.
says, "Don't
She's
think
like,
about it too hard." And they fucking
Yeah,
wink,
yeah,
wink,
yeah,
nudge,
she said,
nudges
"Don't
the
think about it too
audience.
hard."
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Is like, it's like, just make it a time travel movie. Stop all this reverse shit. Stop
Yeah.
this. You can't breathe. Reverse oxygen.
Yeah, and speaking of time travel movie, it is a time travel movie, but it also is kind of a spy movie,
Right.
and it's also like there are parts that make it feel like it's kind of a heist movie. Like the whole art thing is like
Yeah. And
like
a
it's got
time
this-
heist movie would have been really
it's like a
fucking
time
cool.
heist spy, like little smatterings of a bunch of stuff, and I actually really liked when it was trying to be a heist movie. I thought they could have leaned into that a little bit more. Like if they just picked one lane, you know,
I
stuck
think
with it a little bit. It could be
yeah.
a time traveling movie.
I think
with
you're right.
the
and
spy
all this
element.
probably would have been resolved if they had spent more time in the writing room, not trying to like answer these questions and do stuff like that, but instead just like focus on making it entertaining. Focus on like, I don't know, naming your main character and like giving
Sure.
him a reason to be there.
What
And, like,
I mean, it's a good time to talk about this kind of thing because I think, well, I mean, I think the problem is too is like time travel movies have been done and done well already. So now what do you do?
mhm.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Even frequently asked questions about time travel is a well done time travel film. Have you seen that one?
Mhm.
It's good. It's a good one. It's a comedy. It's got comedy guys in it. But it's another thing. I think the bathroom is the time machine or something.
Hot
I
tub
haven't seen
time
it in a
machine?
while. But it's the same type.
Hot
Hot
tub
tub
time
time
machine.
machine's another good classic.
Hot Tub Time
Yeah.
Machine is one of my favorite gimmicks where they look to other people
That
in
was
the movie
great. Yeah.
like they're younger, but to the audience, it's the funny
Yeah,
actors.
I like
Right,
I like when Craig Reynolds is. It's almost like it's some kind of hot tub time machine. He looks right at the camera. I'm like, that's exactly how you sell this stupid shit. And you
Yeah.
just
He's
tell it-
Suicide Squatter does.
Exactly.
Hot Tub Time
Right,
Machine is
right.
probably one of the best time machine comedies.
Yeah. Followed by frequently asked questions about time travel. You guys should watch it. It's good.
Okay.
But I mean, like again, you got time crimes. You get fucking Back to the Future. It's been done.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think that's part of the problem too. But also, because all this stuff's been done, it's like, how do you? These directors now are just trying to, instead of just telling a good story, they're trying all this gimmick stuff. Like Snyder's a prime example of
Yes.
the Justice League cut being in 4:3. It does not enhance the film. And at this point, like I was just telling you, I showed my youngest daughter Godfather 1 and 2, pretty much back to back, one day and the next day. That is nothing special about camera. There's no special camera angles. Those are static shots, man. They put the camera on the tripod and they hit go. The tripod.
Mhm.
What did I say?
Trapped it.
Well, I can't hear myself.
Oh.
So that's hard to hear. It's hard to talk normally. That and I'm just dumb and old. But there's nothing special going on. It's just people talking, and the camera just sits still. There's some cool shots, but generally speaking, so you don't need all this gimmick stuff like Army of the Dead, where everything's out of focus. You don't need all this gimmick stuff. Just tell a good story.
Have
But
you checked that
also-
out, Jeremy?
Focus on.
Army of the Dead?
No,
Army
I've
of the
been
Dead,
hearing about it.
everything's
Can
out
So.
we shit on that a little bit because you didn't.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it
So
yet.
the,
You're not going to wreck anything for him. You know?
So I mean, it's a Zack Snyder film, which is like I'll watch a Zack Snyder film because of the action, but that's pretty much
and
it.
the visuals. Yeah.
It's
Sure.
it's fun. But this movie was shot on like the most shallow depth of field lens I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And it's all handheld too. So I do want to give whoever the AC was on that movie like all the props because like he was able to focus on that at least one eye.
Yeah.
But like they're doing handheld camera work with this
Hmm.
very shallow lens depth of field lens, and nothing's in focus. Even the stuff that's in focus is not in focus.
Like the
it's
depth of
like-
field is so shallow. Like the person's eyes will be in focus, but their nose will be out of focus.
Yeah,
it's
it's
that fucking
So
shot.
weird.
And
The
I
almost
don't get
time.
that.
every shot is like
The
that.
entire time, and it's
And they're focusing the
Yeah.
whole time, and it was like it was.
Sorry.
I
couldn't-
felt I kept wiping my eyes. I'm not shitting you. I kept
Yeah.
rubbing my eyes. Like, is it my eyes? Is it? It was, and there was a lot of lens flares going on. And
That
stuff like
sounds
that.
horrible.
But again, it's like, just it was horrible.
It is horrible.
And the movie sucks. The characters are dumb. It felt like Suicide Squad. It was,
Okay.
just, it was just kind of a copy of Suicide. You know, it's funny. Like, so the intro of the film, I'm watching it. You know, with the credits going on, and I'm sitting going like, "This is a better movie already than what I'm about to see. I can already know. I already know it."
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I would have rather known this story of how the zombie apocalypse happened and they got out of Vegas than in them going back and reassembling the team, which was nowhere. And I've read a lot of reviews about it. Stuff. A lot of people had a great point. There's so many plot holes, so many problems. Like, if it was Tanaka's fault, why didn't he just give him the code?
Yeah,
And I'm
this
like,
is
I didn't even think of that.
yeah,
Why
this
save
is
Cracker?
the screenwrite thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was his big point. He's like, I don't know.
But my point being is like maybe this is the problem for all these guys and us included. Is like everything's kind of been done at this point. How do you make anything original at all anymore?
Well, that's the thing too, and I wanted to touch
Yeah.
on this. And then this is also something that came out recently too.
Well, really quickly, you blur your lens. You do a
Yeah.
4:3 aspect ratio instead of just leaving it widescreen. You know, they're trying everything because they're like, fuck, what do we do now?
Well,
Sure.
they in this case is literally Zack Snyder and Zack Snyder.
That's just-
Zack Snyder was
Right.
the cinematographer for Army of the Dead, and he should not be.
but I mean,
I don't
like
know
even,
what that decision was.
but I'm talking about they as in Christopher Nolan too.
People.
Christopher Nolan, I think his problem is that he just didn't fucking write a story. He wrote an idea down on like a paper napkin and probably drew like a squiggly line and was like, that's the time.
Well, he's also probably at a point where Cameron's at, and Spielberg's at, and Lucas is at, where he's surrounded completely by yes men, and no one's going to tell him this is stupid. You know what I mean? Because they're all making,
Yeah.
you know, the guy's a multimillionaire now. No one's going to get in his way. It's like, I think we talked about this before. It's like the guys talking about Anatomy of a Stormtrooper, whatever it's called. Where these guys, I mean, I would be one of these guys that got added, was able to play a Stormtrooper and get added to, even though I
Was
hated
that
it.
the Dewback?
The Dewback, Anatomy of the
Anatomy
Dewback.
of a Dewback, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
These guys are like coming out of their skin so excited to be part of it when no one's saying this is a bad idea. And I would be the same as those guys too, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
Is no one's telling these guys, hey, this is dumb. We shouldn't be doing
Right.
this. Or even like Tenet, no one was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan.
Right.
No one's gonna
like,
tell
it's
him that
so
because
convoluted.
they're all just like, well, we're gonna make millions off this because it's Christopher Nolan, and he made millions because the Batman movies were so good. Even though you guys don't like the third one, I don't do.
But the third one's
But the
fine
third one is
halfway
nasty.
through,
I
and
do.
then it loses its steam.
Well,
The
it
third
also
Batman film- I'm
seemed
not
like
afraid
it
to
was.
say this. The third Batman film is a bad movie. It is a fundamentally poorly done movie. It is way too long.
Well, it's definitely way too long.
Like you're right that halfway, like it makes it halfway through being a good movie. But we've watched a lot of movies where the first act is fine.
Mhm.
Like the third Batman movie
Prometheus is a good example.
is fucking terrible. They just get rid of all concept of like time to travel to places. They completely break the rules of their own thing. They blow up a bridge. Like bridges don't explode like that in that movie. Like everything that could be wrong, like goes wrong in this movie, and I cannot possibly understand why. Why did Batman have to go to a hole in the Middle East? Why not throw him in a hole somewhere where it would make sense for him to make it back to Gotham? Like,
You know how long would it take him to get back to Gotham after getting out of that hole?
it's fucking
He walked, I think.
ridiculous. It's
Even if he took a
absolutely
boat.
absurd. How much stuff? There's a scene where Commissioner Gordon's like, "What? You expect me to walk down Main Street in my dress blues?" And then 30 minutes later, he's in his dress blues walking down Main Street. He doesn't even have a gun. And it's just like, "We're gonna march on the capital of Bane," whatever. It's like, Jesus Christ. As soon as, like,
You know what's weird is that all the cops get into a fist fight with Bane's guys at the end of the movie, but they should all have guns.
none of it makes sense. Like, it
Why are they all
falls apart.
brawling?
It falls apart.
They're all like
so
swinging
bad.
fists and they got
Really?
nightsticks and stuff. It's like, shouldn't you all just be shooting each other?
Yeah,
That's a good point.
Dark Knight
Yeah.
Rises is a fundamentally bad film. Bane is a pleasure to watch on screen.
I just say he's
I
so
loved him.
I love that character so much.
But he is.
Yeah.
But the movie itself is actually bad, And anybody who says that it's not a fundamentally poorly done film doesn't understand like what makes a film good.
Yeah, Dad.
I'm not saying it's great. I said I liked it, Dana.
I
You
definitely
can
like it better than
Like I
that.
said, I love Bane. I
Yeah.
fucking dude. He's
I
hilarious.
like young Robin kid. I wish we.
I like Joseph Gordon-Levitt too
Oh,
in the
yeah,
movie.
there's some great characters in the movie, but the movie is poorly done.
But on Tenet, really quick, you can watch a lot of people doing like video essays and stuff, and they're Christopher Nolan apologists, and they're like, oh, he's actually doing this. You know, he's like, you know, it's actually good that this movie was bad and all this stuff. And I
What?
was like,
What does that,
What does that
make any
mean?
sense?
I don't know. I stopped watching after that point.
Yeah.
It's actually
Well,
good that the
if
movie
you,
was bad.
you know, the thing is, if you watch this movie and just kind of remove yourself a little bit from trying, because the first time you're just trying to hold on for dear life to try and figure out all the information they're throwing at you,
Right.
you're just white knuckling it through the whole movie. But the second time I watched it, it did make a lot more sense. It's one of those movies that you got to watch again. And the second time I watched it, I also kind of sat back a little bit and enjoyed some of the more visual aspects of the movie. And I got to tell you, the car chases are fucking awesome. The fight scenes are pretty damn cool. When what's his name is in
When
two
John
places
David
at the
Washington
same
is
time.
fighting himself
I-
backwards.
When he's fighting himself
I do.
and
I
he's
do
fighting
like
himself
that.
in reverse. Really cool. I don't know how they made that look so good. Where he's like going in reverse but not going in reverse at the same time fighting the guy. And the stuff, I think that's the one thing that was cool about introducing the bullets that go in reverse and all that thing. Practically it made no sense, and plot wise it made no sense. But it was really
It does make
useful to
zero
have
sense
that kind of
John
shit.
David Washington was shooting at himself.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't know he was shooting at himself.
No, he does know that he's shooting at himself
Yeah.
because it's the reverse one that's shooting the bullets.
Yeah.
Remember?
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, because
well, I don't
the
know.
whole reveal is that like John David Washington and I was gonna say Ryan Reynolds and
Robert Pattinson.
and Robert
Robert
Pattinson
Pattinson.
walk into the room and they see the bullet holes in the glass.
Oh, right.
And they're like, "Oh, what's going on here? This is crazy." And then the two
Right,
people
and then
come
it-
out,
yeah.
and then he's like, "Bop, bop, 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 bop." So
I
John
thought
David
that was
Washington was
cool.
shooting at himself.
I don't know. He's trying to scare himself. I don't know. But I thought it was cool, and I thought the fight scene was cool. I thought the bungee jumping made no sense, but it was really cool.
Yeah.
And I thought when the plane crashed, and you're seeing like it's like exploding, but also putting itself back together. Is it the plane that's doing that? That was really cool. So the movie's visually interesting.
There
in
is
that
the,
way,
the
it
scene
sort of
at the
reminds
very
me of
end too, where they shoot the
Inception.
rockets simultaneously, but one's going backwards and one's going forward. So like the building is like.
Yeah.
That was really
yeah.
like I mean, there's a lot of really cool moments.
So there's a lot of cool
in the
stuff to
film.
watch, I guess is all I'm trying to say, in the movie, even though it makes no sense.
That's about
You know?
that's all it is.
So,
It's-
you
it's-
know,
But I mean, what's the one where they go to space and it's
Interstellar.
Interstellar.
I like
there's another one
Interstellar.
that I just
And I think that's the thing about Nolan is he's been kind of slowly working his way into this like every movie seems to be this grander, more out there concept in theory. There's the space travel with Interstellar. I thought Inception was sort of like the perfect balance.
Yeah.
Like
Inception's a good
Inception
movie. Inception's also
is
not
dense,
Yeah.
but it makes sense, and you're not listening. You're not holding on for dear life trying to figure out what's going on. Like
You
it's
go into
dense.
people's
There's stuff going
dreams.
on.
Time moves slower in dreams. Okay.
Yeah.
If you go into a dream in a dream, time moves even slower. Okay. It's like
Right.
if you go 4
Like, that
levels
was the
deep,
perfect
then like
balance.
you can't get back out.
And
Okay.
Inception has characters that you actually kind of care about, and that
Yeah.
kind of makes sense, and that you can follow.
That's the biggest.
So,
That's the most important thing.
you know.
Is, like, I mean, it doesn't even matter if the time travel makes any sense. The time travel in Back to the Future is completely bonkers. It makes zero sense. It does not hold water. There's no way that time travel could possibly work in that way and like be logically conducive. But there's not a single person that I know of that's ever watched Back to the Future and been like, but would that actually work that way? Everybody's like, oh man,
It's
dude, I
your
can't believe he
20th
almost banged his mom.
if you never you either never question it, or by the 20th watch you're like, wait a minute, you know.
Mhm.
It takes that
Yeah.
many watches before you really start to question it. And
Yeah.
even then you're like, well, I don't give a shit because it's such a good movie.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah, and Back to the
difference
Future has a
with Back
great
to the
story
Future
and
is-
great characters.
Yeah.
is the time travel in Back to the Future is incidental.
Yeah, of course.
You can
It's something
remove
that's what we're
time
going through.
travel, and the story would technically still work.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to adjust some things. The characters are interesting.
Yeah.
I want to know about
Yeah.
Marty and Doc and Marty's mom and dad and his brother and sister and even Biff and his friends, and everything that's kind of going on is interesting even without time travel. With
Yeah.
Tenet, is time travel sort of the thing.
It's the crux of the
I mean, you know, you keep saying his name, and I can't.
John David Washington.
John David Washington. I don't even think a better actor would have done much for this film, but he's obviously over his head, and you know, I think that is they start out with talking to the scientist, and they're doing the entropy bullets, and at first it doesn't work for him, and she says, "Oh, well, you've got to think about dropping it," and then all of a sudden it works.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And okay, that's fine, but when we completely forget about that, and it doesn't even work with when they start using people in entropy,
Right.
is all of a sudden you've given me a subset of what's supposed to be going on, and then it doesn't.
Right.
And then when on top of that, I don't give a crap about the Kenneth Branagh character. I don't give a crap about his wife or his son.
Did you notice his lips?
What's that?
Did you
He
notice
has
his
no.
lips?
He's
Did
lipless.
You, I point that out.
He has one lipless.
That's
bastard.
all I could see when every time I was like,
He doesn't have lips. They,
Yeah.
they
Doesn't have
end.
lips. But
And his
got
mouth.
so I mean, but the point is that if the characters had been interesting, you know,
I
I found out that Robert Pattinson can act. That was interesting.
Yeah,
This is the
he's
only
actually
movie
an
I've
actor.
ever
He's
seen
a
him
good actor.
in,
That's true.
besides the couple of Twilights I watched.
Yeah.
But
That's 'cause
still,
he went and did a bunch of new
is
stuff.
you know, Christopher Nolan needed to start with interesting characters that we cared about.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's
And
probably
then,
all
no
movie
matter
series.
what the science or the time travel does, we're going to buy it because the characters
Because we're
are
invested. Yeah.
Again, I think that's the problem with all movies. I think it's the problem with Army of the Dead. Just everything that's coming out now is there's no such thing as original anymore, right? There hasn't been for years, actually. You just take different pieces and you put them together and make it your own. But your characters we have to care about them, and if we don't care about them, none of this shit's gonna fucking matter. And it doesn't, because we didn't care about any of these characters. Like, we didn't care about the main character, and I'm sure he's a fine actor, but
He's really good in Black Klansman.
yeah,
That's
I
what I
haven't
know.
seen him anything else, so I
It's
don't
good.
know. But in this, I didn't care. And again, because there's no, if there's supposed to be a love story between him and the wife, they should have had that. There should have been chemistry. There should have been something. We don't care about any of these characters. That's the problem with all this stuff. Even Interstellar, at least we cared about these characters. I don't think Interstellar is all that great. It's too complicated. There's too much mess going on. But at least with Matthew McConaughey's character and his
And
interaction.
yeah, I actually
Him and
really
his
liked,
daughter. That's all great.
I
That's
loved
what's good about the
Interstellar, but yeah, a big part of the reason I love Interstellar is like the whole scene where he makes it off of that water planet and he gets the mail from his daughter who's now 40, and he realizes
Right.
that like he's not going to make it back in time, and so I mean that was such a heart-wrenching moment. And it's because Matthew McConaughey is really entertaining to watch.
Yeah.
The older actress they got for the daughter is really entertaining to watch.
Jessica Chastain.
And it's just, I mean, like, that makes, to Doug's point, that makes a good movie. If you're, like, entertained by the people and the plot of the film, you're not going to care so much about the mechanics. But if you
And
make
you
it,
guys were,
yeah.
and, excuse me, you guys were talking about a book you're reading earlier, and you were talking about following the rules.
Yeah.
And part of a lot of this, and you don't have to always follow the rules, but it is a good idea. It does make for good characters when you follow some elemental rules.
Right.
And
make sure the
there's
background gets
sometimes a reason why some things have not been done before.
Well, again, it's been 1,000
Yeah.
years, and I'm no screenwriter at all. But I took a screenwriting class, and that guy kept pounding in everyone's head. Is like, you can bend the rules, but you can't break them. You know, that is there has to be a structure. Shit has to make sense. But we're also to a point too where we're like, because all these characters nowadays too are so one-dimensional, because all that anyone's doing is exactly following the rules for one-dimensional characters, and then that's it. And then nobody can really act anymore. Everyone's reading lines and they're acting like they're acting, and if that makes any sense. But if you watch it,
Well, I
when
think
you watch
that's-
John David Washington's dad, Denzel Washington, that motherfucker could read any god. Like I just watched Flight again. If you guys have ever seen Flight, great movie.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He's great in it though. That's what he makes the goddamn movie.
He's really good
It's
in
a good movie.
Book of Eli.
He's
Book of
a
Eli
lot
sucks.
less good in Book of Eli.
Yeah.
He's still the best part.
But he's
Him
still the
and-
best thing
him
watching
and, Commissioner Gordon are the best part.
Yeah,
What
they,
about
those two guys can sell a movie.
who's the girl in that movie? The blind girl.
Oh, is it? No, he's the.
Oh, he's blind.
He's blind.
What's the girl?
Did you know
Mila
that?
Is it Mila Kunis? I was gonna say Mila Kunis,
Because
but I
she's
didn't
not
want to
blind,
be
but she
wrong.
plays the daughter of the.
Yeah, she's not
the
blind,
blind woman
but-
is actually Flashdance.
Jennifer Beals.
There's
Jennifer Beals.
There's
yeah.
actually plenty
Oh.
of good characters in that movie. I liked the movie generally, but like as like
It's
a
fun.
goofy apocalypse flick.
I love it. I watched it recently, and the clouds in the background are going like 1,000,000 miles an hour. It's all on green screen, and I don't know.
Here's, here's a great time travel movie.
Yes.
Deja Vu. With
Oh,
Yeah.
Denzel
That's a
Denzel.
good
one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, where
and
he
Paula
breaks that.
That's a good one.
Just
Yeah.
looking smoking hot. But that's a good movie, and it's a jump
Is
off
that-
a bridge.
Is that Robert Pattinson's mom?
No.
I don't know.
Well,
Paul
I
Pat-
do.
that's Paul
I'll
Pat.
be honest. I think
Oh,
that
Paul
they
Pat.
did not do John David Washington any favors in this movie because he is tasked with explaining everything, the entire movie, and there is so much to explain. There's no way that you're going to wrap your mind around it. And his character is the one who has to deliver all the expository dialogue. So sometimes it feels like when you're watching the movie, he is just talking to people and he's just, it seems like you said, Daryl, like he's reading lines.
Or he's,
Well, there's
lecturing,
so
yeah.
much shit. There's so much dumb information, technical information, scientific information that you, they're trying to give you as a viewer via him as a vehicle. It feels like they're using this actor as a vehicle to explain all the science for the movie, but it leaves him no room to do anything else. He has no lines. You know what I'm saying? Like it leaves him
Yeah.
as an actor like no room to do anything that would make you buy into his
Well,
character.
Yeah, and he has no opportunity. Like this is the problem again with the film is just that he's not given any reason to like be motivated to do stuff other than like he
To
lives.
do anything.
Yeah, he lives
Yeah.
in the past,
and he is reading paragraphs and
Yeah.
paragraphs and paragraphs of exposition in the script. They didn't write any room for him to be a character.
That's a
Exactly,
good- I didn't
this is a
realize
big
that until
problem.
you
Yeah,
just
that's a
pointed
good
that
point.
out. Yeah, because he's repeating everything that the characters are saying as if it's supposed
Everything.
to make sense to us, but it's
Throughout the entire movie. You know,
The
so they didn't write
dialogue's
him.
supposed to be about the character, and you
Yeah.
sneak in exposition here and there. But it's
Mhm.
really
Great,
supposed to be
is a
about
great
them.
example of that.
And essentially, he's just standing there explaining everything to us.
Yeah, exactly.
And
He is
that's
just a
not really how this
mouthpiece.
is supposed to
Yeah,
work.
That's a good
My
point.
favorite
I mean,
part
in a,
is
in, a, in a lot of cases on something like this is it's better to kind of dumb down your science or your whatever, in this case time travel, than it is to try and explain it in huge blocks where we've got to
Mhm.
sit there for 2.5
I don't
hours.
think they needed to even try to explain it that
No,
much. Just
but-
show like the fucking thing.
Just do it, and your audience will catch up.
Yeah.
And that's usually
And the
it's,
people who are really invested will watch it a million times. I mean,
Yeah.
fucking look at Primer. Primer actually probably did it better than this movie because at least Primer.
Primer, have you seen Primer?
who's in it?
Nobody.
Nobody.
Yeah,
You would know if
Shane
you've seen
Yeah.
it.
Shane
Yeah.
Carruth,
But I
So
probably have not seen it.
at least with Primer,
And
they
Time
they
Primer's
went out of
pretty
their
good.
way to not explain anything, and you have to like go and really like understand it, like think really hard about it. It's the problem with Primer is just that the guy who wrote it doesn't know how to make interesting characters. The problem with Tenet is the guy who wrote it knows how to make interesting characters and decided to not do that, and instead focus on trying to explain the theory of the craft. And it's like, just go write a fucking essay. Like don't make a movie if you're not going to put like interesting plot into it.
Well, you know, the thing is, like, you know, give all these guys a break, though. When no one goes into these movies, especially when they're multi-million dollars like this, to make a shitty movie, obviously. They're trying to make something cool, you know?
Mhm.
And, again, you get to a point where, because if you look at one of Christopher Nolan's first movies,
Traveler? Or The Follower?
no, not that far back.
Memento?
Memento's fantastic.
Memento's a great
Mm.
movie, and it's not
Fantastic.
because of the fact that it's told out of sequence. It's because of the fact that it's
got
an
a good
interesting
story.
character and it's
And you got some
interesting
great
story.
actors.
Yeah, you can watch
it's a
Memento
good story.
there's a YouTube video of Memento that's told chronologically.
Yeah, they do it chronologically.
Yeah, and it's a much less interesting film.
Yes.
So, like, absolutely, the way that he did that was really well done because it makes the movie more interesting. It creates suspense where there was no suspense, and it's like that.
Right,
That's a
right.
great idea. Tenet doesn't do that. It doesn't.
But he also
capture
was
anything like
a young filmmaker. He had no money, and super low budget, and so you were forced to do things. I talk about this a lot on the podcast. So with these directors, they reach a point where they're like, "Sure, $200 million, go make a movie,"
Mhm.
and it's like I don't think that's good for anybody. I don't think I don't. If you have that much, and I think this is one of the sounding like an old man too. I think this is one of the problems with CGI too, is because we can literally do anything now visually. No one tries to not do that, if that makes sense.
You know what I
You know
think?
what I mean? Because they're like, well, we'll
Right,
just do
or
it.
get creative.
We'll just do it. Yeah, no one figures out, well, how we don't have a body bag. We'll just use my dry cleaning bag. That's when magic happens. And if you have all this money, you have no magic.
I want to
That's
pitch.
part of the
I
problem.
want to pitch an idea here. Here's what we do, right? We take a 5-year-old. We sit him in a room with a bunch of writers, and the 5-year-old is the one who comes up with the plot and the ideas, and the writers are tasked with figuring out a way to make this incoherent 5-year-old's like stupid ass ideations and turn it into something that's
Robert
palatable
Rodriguez has
to
already
the
done
audience.
this with multiple movies.
Has he really?
With his son Jet, yeah.
Is it Spy Kids?
Spy Kids, as he did it with, what else? He,
Is it the Lava Boy and
Shark
Girl,
Girl,
Lava Boy,
Lava
Lava
that's
Girl.
his kid's concept.
Huh.
Also,
I didn't know that.
M. Night Shyamalan,
Mhm.
Lady in the Water, kids, wrote that with his
Lady
kids
in
or
the Water's a
something.
movie.
That's a shit movie.
Wow, whatever.
It's a terrible film.
I
What
think
you
this.
get,
I
Ben.
think this idea has legs.
You know what? It is interesting.
Because I was way more creative when I was 5 than I am now.
Now you know everything. You've seen everything.
That's part of the problem too, right? Is when you think too much. Now, remember when you're first playing guitar? There was a point when you first started playing guitar when you were the better than you ever be, and even now, because you didn't think it. Just there was a part where you were playing by instinct or by feeling,
because you
and
didn't
you were
know
thinking about the
what you didn't
notes
know.
because you didn't quite know.
Right.
And then you get to a point where you start overthinking it, right? You start worrying about theory, and and then you're just not as good anymore.
Right.
But I agree with you. When you're a kid, your mind is wide open and imagination, everything's possible. And you get to a certain point where your brain, and then you get old like me and Doug, and you really shut down.
You don't have to throw Doug in this. Jesus.
He's old too.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, that's why, and also like the way that we're consuming media is very different too, in terms of like watching something visually. Whenever I part of my morning routine on a weekend is I make breakfast and I sit down and I watch something. It's always YouTube videos now because they're 20 minutes long, and I can
If that,
you know, watch VFX artists react on Saturday morning, and then be done with my breakfast by then, and then I'll go do something else. It's great. I won't watch TV shows or movies or anything like that. But then another thing I want to talk about too is allowing. I mean, it's a double-edged sword kind of, but I do give Christopher Nolan props for making Tenet.
and for trying something. I'll give him
He's
that.
trying something different, and it's a very interesting idea. Like if you break
And
it
if
down,
you take something from it, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's really cool parts. Like Jeremy said, like the way that they did the fight scene. The first time you watch around, they're both like one's reversed, one's going normal. They shot that normally. Like they didn't do any crazy CGI or anything like that. They just shot it forwards and played it backwards in some parts and choreographed it in a certain way that made it look different. But if you notice, if you watch it again, it's all sound design. So the inverted dude is all that stuff's reversed. So
Right.
I'll give Christopher Nolan props that too. He actually does do a lot of practical effects.
Yeah.
A lot of the plane was real. They really crashed the
I mean,
plane.
he had a good point. He's like, it's going to cost us as much money to hire a studio to do this. We'll just
Exactly.
actually crash a plane and then repair the damage.
Yeah.
So it was an unused plane. It was going to get scrapped. They're just like, yeah, we'll just shove it into this building.
No, I give him credit. And I give him credit for even trying it. And I even give credit to Zack Snyder. It was the shelled up feel was annoying as fuck and was terrible. But I don't think that's the right direction. Like I said, stop doing visual stuff. Just fucking tell a story. You know what I mean? I think that's the problem. Is everybody's trying everything but just going back to telling stories. with interesting characters. And they try to have interesting characters like Army of the Dead. You get this safecracker guy, Dieter, but he screams whenever he gets scared. And it's like, it feels like we've seen it. You get this annoying daughter who's, her whole motivation is to go save some friend, so she gets everyone killed. And you're like, all this is stupid. When you're watching a movie, in the middle of watching a movie going, wow, these are all terrible, stupid story decisions.
Yeah.
If it's something you're noticing while you're watching it, then the film is absolutely fine.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's why-
again, at least I'll give props for trying something. But I just think they're going in the wrong direction. Stop visual stuff. Stop fucking around with aspect ratios. They're not as important as everybody thinks artistically. Stop it. No one gives a fuck about your aspect ratio. Just
Yeah,
put it
and
on the screen.
especially now that most people aren't watching movies in theaters, or at least comparatively so. You know, if we're most people are watching stuff when it comes out on streaming services, and they're watching it in their living room, and all that stuff, then it really doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Like even less than it used to, and it probably didn't matter that much before. But now
we
that
have, everything's
you know,
widescreen now. Your phone's widescreen. Your computer monitor,
Yeah.
your TV. We don't have boxes anymore. So let's not
Right.
go back to that. That sucked. We grew up with
Mhm.
boxes. Square shit sucks. I'm sorry. As soon as we started getting widescreen stuff, it was beautiful. Because you go to the theater, you're seeing it in widescreen. You go home,
Yeah.
and now they've cut off both sides of it, edited for television and all this stuff, and you're like, well, this
Mhm.
sucks. I can't see what's going on over here. I just missed the whole alien part because it happened over in this third that's now being chopped off by this stupid aspect ratio. That,
right.
And what's his name's not the only one doing this fourth the aspect ratio. There's other people who are trying to do artsy stuff. And I forget there's some movie. Joel Edgerton was in it, and it was a horror film. I didn't even see it.
Oh, is it?
The whole movie slowly squeezes the aspect ratio
Oh, yeah.
to try to.
Does it really?
Just stop.
That's annoying.
Just make the fucking movie. The
Yeah.
Everybody's like said, still worried about aspect ratios. 16:9, widescreen, whatever. Let's just. And I like a good widescreen. You know what I mean? So just stop. It's not this important to the story. You know what I mean? What's on
Yeah.
the screen, the characters. That's what's important to the story. Anyways.
Yeah, and speaking of like stories, so I know I've tried to get you to watch it a little bit, but have you seen Love, Death, and Robots, Jeremy? Have you seen it, Doug? On Netflix?
I've seen a few episodes. I haven't
I've seen a few.
seen its entirety, but I've seen, I don't know, maybe 3.
Okay, so the first
3 episodes?
season is a great example of letting studios just kind of like giving them a theme. Like the idea was like, is it Tim Miller that did Sin
Yeah.
City, or is it Frank Miller?
Frank Miller.
Frank Miller. Yeah, Tim Miller's.
Did he do Heavy Metal?
Tim
He did
Miller-
Heavy Metal.
It was he directed the latest. Fucking. Speaking of time travel movies, with Terminator movie.
Oh, that is definitely not him. Okay, so it's Frank Miller. Okay, so yeah,
No,
Frank Miller.
It's Tim Miller.
Is it Tim Miller?
They did Love, Death, and the Robots. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
so
really?
Tim Miller. Wait.
Oh. So it's not the guy who did Sin
Frank
City.
isn't
No.
Frank Miller
Frank
the
Miller's
comic
Sin
book
Sin
writer?
City.
Tim Miller is.
300.
Yeah.
I think
No,
it-
that's
I think
300
that
Zack
was-
Snyder.
Oh, okay.
But
They look
but
alike.
Frank Miller
It's-
Frank Miller wrote the
I
comic
don't-
book.
I don't think it's the
Right.
dude. I think it is the comic book dude.
Frank Miller.
That's Frank Miller.
Frank Miller. Okay, so I think it was Frank Miller. Okay, one of the Millers. But he basically went to all these VFX studios and gave them a theme. He used like Love, Death, and Robots. Like just give me something based off of that. And the stuff that they came up with in the first season is incredible.
It's
and
great.
it's like great original stories. I mean, they're short form, and I know one of Ben's complaints is like they're too short to get the impact.
Well, I don't like anthology stuff specifically.
Okay.
I don't want to sit. I mean, like, if I'm going to consume, 15-minute episodes, then, like, don't give me a bunch of 15-minute episodes that aren't part of the same universe. That just annoys me. I don't like that
Twilight
shit.
Zone. You don't like Twilight Zone? Then?
Not a big fan. Well, Twilight Zone, I guess, is fine. But Twilight Zone's a little bit different. It's more of a what-if series. Love, Death, and Robots is not a what-if series. It's just an anthology of a bunch of shit that has been inspired by the same 3 words.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's some stinkers in there, but for the most part, the first season's got some of the
Good.
best stories I've ever
What did you?
watched.
Yeah, well, you don't like Ben. You don't like anthology. What do you think of Black Mirror?
Black Mirror, again, that's a what-if series. It's not really the same.
And those are
concept.
long.
Oh,
Those
okay.
are like hour-long episodes. So.
Yeah, so I'm fine with what-if series. But, yeah, Love, Death, and Robots, I actually didn't hate it. It was just...
Are we talking about season 1 or season
I
2? Because season 2
season-
is not that great.
I've only seen like the first 4 episodes of season 1, and
Oh,
I
okay.
just found myself as I was watching it thinking, like, I don't have enough time to feel invested in the series. Like, I liked
Right.
I liked the one with the arena fighting. I thought that was pretty good. I liked the one with the 3 robots walking around like the decrepit city. With
I saw those
with the
two.
cats. But I found that basically the problem that I had with it was mostly just that, like, I wasn't really as invested in finishing Love, Death, and Robots.
You didn't see Beyond the Aquila Rift?
Which one's that one?
That's the one where they wake up and they're like way past their rendezvous point or something. It's later on in the series, so you probably didn't get to it.
Isn't that the plot of the cruise ship with Dr. House? Isn't it Hugh Laurie? There's like a live action show that is a similar plot to that.
I have no idea.
I think it's called Adrift or something.
Anyways, that was the best one, I think, from season 1.
But yeah, I mean, they're just, in my opinion, they're like some of the best short stories I've ever watched. You know, they're it reminds me again, which is why I think it's the dude that did Heavy Metal. It's that in Sin City. It's that thing, you know, where it's just like really good stories that are kind of just like connected by this one theme. But I think like that is such a cool, and it's interesting how that something like that comes out on a big streaming platform like Netflix. In like today's times and stuff, where Netflix is all about these huge bingeable TV shows that are all connected and all this stuff. But Love, Death, and Robots was like that kind of like one thing that just popped up out of nowhere, and they're like, yeah, here's a bunch of stories, love them or hate them, like whatever, these exist.
Well, you know, honestly, like this is a movie podcast. Well, it's kind of a movie podcast, but honestly, like I think as we go on, it's gonna start turning into that kind of content, because like it is easy to sit here and say that, like, you know, movies suck and like people don't know what they're doing anymore, but I think maybe these streaming services have kind of either grown new talent or at least figured out a way to capture talent that movies no longer seem to be able to do as effectively, because we've talked about this before. There's a lot of shows that are really, really well done, and like we're not complaining about cinematography or esoteric director decisions. We're talking about like these characters are really good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think Daryl, what you're talking about, telling stories and characters, they figured it out with these series, like
Game of Thrones.
Queen's Gambit is one of those.
Queen's Gambit. Another one where
You know, those are characters and stories, and we care about them, and it's really good.
About these characters.
Yeah,
You
Queen's
know,
Gambit, talk about a fucking. Queen's Gambit is a series about almost nothing. Like it's just a girl
it's
that's
about fucking
winning
chess,
games.
man. Like they made chess a really engaging part of the story, and it's not because chess is particularly interesting, but we don't really care about the chess. You know, like
Well, we
kind
cared
of like
about- we just
what
cared
what
about,
Doug was saying earlier about the time travel and Back to the Future. It's like it's kind of
Imagine
chess is
Queen's
kind of
Gambit
incidental.
time travel.
Oh my god,
That
what if she
would
went
You know?
back in time?
Amazing.
What if she was
Dude,
inverted?
What if they were playing 4D
What if she was
chess?
inverted?
What if she was playing inverted chess?
Right.
So
She was on the ceiling all
you
the time.
no, where you started
right.
the game at the end and then had to make your way back to.
Ooh, what if she's playing inverted 3D chess?
Ooh.
Star Trek.
With
No,
Vulcans.
you know there's
Now we're talking.
There's a version of chess called 4D chess. This is just a quick aside, where basically you can like pieces can like play normally, or they can go to a different board state, a different timeline, and like literally. And so, in order to win in 4D chess, you need to checkmate the king in all timelines that have been created. But like if you're playing like legit, you can like get like hundreds of timelines. Guys, you're just trying to fucking checkmate. It's so stupid.
I thought 4D
Nerds.
chess was when you're playing chess and then you can feel the bugs running under your butt and you get sprayed by water.
No, that's 4D Shrek.
Oh. Mixed up.
But yeah, I think we do have potential. Being optimistic, I think we do have potential for good content, because obviously good content is being created in other mediums that are not necessarily film at the moment. And Tenet is a great try, Christopher Nolan. I'm sure that you know a lot more about film than I do, but I know a lot about watching films, and your film was not amazing.
Not watching.
So there.
Should we talk about the sound design super fast?
I lost my train of thought.
Sound mixing?
Yeah, we can
Yeah,
talk
we
about
should
Well,
wrap
it
this
just-
up
it was
then.
ass.
I
talk
think
Is
we're
what
talking-
is what it
we
was.
talked about half this podcast was about Tenet, the other half was about
Everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do want to say I did watch a video where a guy kind of explained why the sound mixing was the way it was, and I kind of agree with him. So the time you can't hear, and I watched this video after I had seen it the first time, and then I watched it a second time with this in mind. So I was paying attention to it. So I wonder if it worked a little bit better for me. But he does have a good point where it's like the stuff that you can't hear the dialogue as well. It doesn't really matter. So one of the scenes that he brings up is that part where the dude is explaining how the bank or the vaults close themselves and suckle the air out with the halide gas and all that stuff. And it doesn't matter. Like that doesn't really, you can catch little bits of it because Robert Pattinson's character asks about it here and there. But it doesn't really matter for the story or to understand what they're doing there.
Yeah.
And it's just the music is overpowering it. There's nothing else going on. But
I
watching it
think
again,
that's
and with that
a little
in
bit
mind,
insulting to the viewer, though, because on the one hand, you're saying, hey, super important dialogue, exposition, lots of science, lots of things going on, tons of moving parts. And in the same breath, you're also saying, well, you're a fucking dumbass for even trying to listen to the music right now. This shit's not important.
Well, I mean, the thing though, too,
You know
is
what I'm saying?
I'm also an advocate for not wasting screen time with useless dialogue. And so if he thinks that he's going to overpower the dialogue with music and therefore render the dialogue useless,
Just don't have dialogue.
just don't
If
have
the dialogue's useless,
if someone's going to talk
and you're
on screen,
intentionally, placing your loud music, your overpowering music in parts of dialogue where it's useless, then man, the movie's 2.5 hours long.
Just
Like the
cut it
last
out.
thing we need is useless dialogue that you're trying to cover. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
I
I
see
get
what the idea could be, but I don't think
Sure.
that's a good way to go about it. Is
but
by,
if you have useless dialogue, just get it out of there.
yeah, I mean they're the only two people talking, and
Yeah.
you can hear them, and so I get what he's trying to do, but at the same time, that's not what you do. It's not one of one
Right,
of the
and-
rules is you should be able to hear what people are saying on.
And meanwhile, I'm trying to get every word here. I'm straining to hear what they're saying. Oh, for what? It's all
This
useless
is why you
dialogue.
watch the subtitles. You know
Yeah,
another
so I
amazing
guess-
thing about subtitles. I was watching South Park a while back with subtitles on it because this is the first time I'd watched South Park after developing this habit. And this is just a life pro tip. They subtitle Kenny.
Really?
Huh.
Ah.
They subtitle him. He's saying things. And it's not every other word or anything like that. He's literally saying sentences that have
Full
been
sentences?
subtitled. Full sentences,
Yeah, they
yes.
fully script and who's it? Matt Stone does it, and he talks into his sleeve when
Yeah,
he's doing Kenny.
so-
but every single
yeah.
word he says is actually scripted. It's actually a word.
Yeah, so if you're
That's funny.
if you're
I guess I never really
curious
thought about that.
subtitles, go watch South Park with subtitles turned on and get a new perspective because it was really mind blowing for me to be like, oh my god, Kenny's actually saying shit.
I thought just go.
And that's how they get away with a lot of, at least initially, a lot of bad words, and because he's saying he likes in the opening song, he's saying he likes big titties and vaginas. That's what he's saying. Kenny's saying in the song. And
That's funny.
but no, all of his is completely scripted, and it's done by Matt Stone in the sleeve of his shirt.
Yeah,
That's
so
what-
South Park with
no
closed
idea.
captioning is it's a whole new world, guys.
That makes sense because the characters respond. They don't respond in a way where it's like Han talking to Chewie, where he repeats a lot of it back, so the audience
Yeah.
knows. They talk to him like they understand him, and
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
audience understands him. So
Look,
I never.
a Jedi Knight.
Yeah.
Right.
Imagine
Well-
if somebody talked to you like that, every time you said something, they just repeated it back to you
Yeah.
but looked at the camera.
All right, should we wrap this up?
Yeah,
I
let's
think we've
let's
talked
go around
Do it.
and
about all
give
we
our
feel like
I'm
our
fading
ratings.
anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah, we gotta get
Series-
a fucking thing
series
over with.
like-
Oh, you're 2 hours ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Right.
flew this morning, and I did have a nap, but I'm still fucking falling to pieces right now. So
All right, let's get through it. Daryl, you want to go first since you're falling asleep?
I guess I give it a 4. That's all I got.
All right, Doug.
Out of
10.
10,
4 out of 4.
I mean, we can rate.
90.
You can rate it out of however much you want. It's
4
just,
out of
I mean-
7.
I'll give it a 5.
5. Do you have anything you want? Daryl didn't add anything, but usually we give a little bit of a defense.
Okay. Because it was an interesting idea, I just think a lot of the execution, I think we've discussed it at length, a lot of the execution is, the foundation was poorly set in the film.
Yeah.
In my estimation. And I think a lot of the focus was off. So I liked the idea. I kept expecting things to happen that just didn't happen. And then ultimately, as we've discussed, the characters just weren't, I didn't give a shit about them. So it was kind of hard to... Visually, I liked the car chases, the explosions, the fights, and stuff like that. Particularly the ones that were inverted and so forth. Yeah. That was all interesting. But like I said, the rest of it pretty much fell flat.
Yeah. You want to go?
Yeah, I'd give it a strong 5, maybe light 6.
Light 6.
I think it's
light 9.
I think it's a perfectly entertaining movie if you're not critically analyzing it. This is something I'm trying to do better now because when we watch movies for the podcast, particularly, I'm very critical of them. But in terms of just like a watchable action movie, like whatever, it's cool. There's a lot of cool scenes in it. I mean, I feel like I could be compelled to go on YouTube and look up like a particular scene and watch that and be like, yeah, that's eye candy. But man, there's just not really much of a plot. And even we didn't talk too much about this, but I don't think there's any reason to. Like, even the like driving force of the film, which is that the universe is going to destroy the past somehow, is like, what? Like, first of all, what? And second of all, why? Who cares? And then, like I don't know, man. It just
they were very high stakes, end of the world, and it didn't feel like it. Nobody acted like it was. They better. If we don't get this, we're gonna fucking all die. There was none of that. Like, seriously, this is the end of everything if we don't fix this.
Right.
If we don't figure this out, guys, this is it. It was none of that. It was like,
especially because...
Let's just go do this thing, and you're like...
this is the big problem with fate-based time travel, too, which is, like, obviously the universe is not ended, so because of the way that fate-based time travel works, the universe will not end. Yeah. And, like, as long as everybody... I mean, like, it's such a weird... Conceptually, it's hard to wrap your mind around, but, like, you don't really need to try because like you're kind of forced to do the thing that's going to happen anyways. So like the universe didn't end. Good job, everybody. Go home. But it didn't really feel like the stakes were very high. It didn't really feel like the protagonist needed to be there. Honestly, I found it insulting as a viewer to watch a movie where they were like, "This guy's the protagonist," and then in the movie he's calling himself the protagonist, and other people calling him the protagonist. And all this shit.
Still don't understand what
the most. It's just insulting. It's insulting storytelling, I think. It's like, come on, like, try harder to write a compelling narrative. Don't just fucking, like...
That was like high school shit.
Don't just, like, show your framework for the script in the actual movie. Like,
and meta. Isn't that what your kids are calling it these days? Everything's meta.
Yeah, I was going to say, it was kind of a little... So meta. Basically a meta thing, like, because I'm the protagonist of this story. Don't you get it?
I found it very... I found it very insulting to the viewer that they would try so... little on making a compelling narrative. But anyways, 5 to 6, I would say.
But it was meta.
Yeah. I give it a 5. I liked all the action sequences again, like we've been talking about, were great. But like I think their huge misstep was introducing the inverted materials as an ability or a power,
right?
That they're going to capitalize on later, and then just.
They do have
this is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Where's this going?
Yeah.
They do have the kind of wanted curve the bullet scene where it's just like, oh yeah, you have to think about it. And, it's like.
And I would have bought something like that.
That
would have been
It's
cool.
like she says, don't think about it, and I was like, fine.
I
Okay,
won't.
I'm done.
Let's do shit.
Yeah, let's get the movie started.
Whoops, the scriptwriter forgot to think about it.
Well, he needed to talk to about 7 more people before the movie.
See, that's the funny thing is like she explains a tiny little bit of it, just enough for it to make a little bit of sense for you to understand what's going on, but not question it. And then she says, "Don't think about it too much." And I was like, "Done, okay."
Well,
and then they spend the entire rest of the movie adding on more shit and then explaining that again. Yeah. Like when he's going into the inverted for the first time, they're explaining that. It's like, you already told us not to think about this.
And he needs the oxygen tank.
Yeah,
the oxygen tank
you told us not to think about this. Just have him do the thing, and it'll look cool. And I'll buy it.
Right. We have this other explanation.
You told us not to question it. I've accepted that. Don't explain it more.
Yeah, then we have another explanation as to why he has to. I love how he can just.
Ridiculous.
Do you know how long that tank would last? It was like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You,
Really?
dude, a scuba
It's
tank
not
is
even.
30 to an hour.
I
Depending on how
mean,
you
And
put it.
that
not
tank you
even
had
not
was
to
like this
mention
big.
that like
Yeah.
what I think Screen Rant brought this up, but like if you went through that thing and everything truly was going backwards, then your eyes would not process light; they would emit light.
It was
Right.
Well, that's the
right.
same thing with being invisible. Is that you can't be invisible
Oh, because you
Because
wouldn't be
you'd
able to
be
see.
blind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fascinating.
Oh yeah, you would have
But-
to
because the
receive
light would have
that.
to reflect off the retina.
But you'd be invisible.
That'd be
Yeah.
cool. It
You
would be
fall
worth it.
downstairs.
Well, it's
and-
also like
and,
those,
and
those
get hit by a car. But
it's
hey,
like
you'd be
the
invisible.
Adam Sandler film where he's got the
You're
remote
invisible.
that stops
Click.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, click.
Click.
That's right. I mean, if you did
Ah,
that,
click.
you wouldn't be able to breathe because oxygen wouldn't move into your lungs.
Mhm.
It wouldn't go anywhere. You'd
But
just
you'd
be
be
in a
invisible.
vacuum.
Yeah, but
But you don't get it because time
Thank you.
stops, Ben. That means
Yeah.
oxygen is on pause too.
Hey, thank you for
You
explaining.
can't pause
that.
oxygen, Jeremy. I don't care what
Yeah.
anyone says.
All right,
Well,
Jeremy,
it's with the
let's,
remote.
Let's get your with the remote. Let's get your teasers here.
Yeah. It gets a 5. It like you guys have all been saying it. It was really fun to watch. I already pointed out all the action scenes that I thought were really cool. I liked Robert Pattinson.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
you did a good job.
it was that was a fun performance for him. I know we didn't talk about it, but the ending, I thought the ending didn't suck. Like the whole it's
That's
the
like
end of the
saying
world thing.
That it sucked though.
Yeah, well, it wasn't great, but it
Yeah.
didn't suck either. Like at the end, when it turns out that he's been pulling his own strings the whole time, he has
Yeah.
actually been
He's
pulling all
one
the
that's
strings.
pulling the strings, yeah.
I thought that was okay. Sure, like I could
You know what?
go
If
with
they
that.
leave it here, I like it, but I was worried that they were trying to make a Tenet 2,
Right,
a
right,
Tenet
yeah.
or whatever.
Because
Because it's got to be a
not.
palindrome. That's the whole point. is
But
that it's a
my,
palindrome.
my big thing with the movie, what was so frustrating about it, is I felt like the first, especially the first time I watched it, like man, you are assuming a lot about most people. Like most people are not gonna buy into this bullshit this hard. Like you are putting such a responsibility on the audience to be like so tuned into your movie and every little bit so that you can follow it, so that you can try and make sense of it if you can, but you won't because it doesn't make sense. And I felt like, man, you know, pretentious might not be the right word, but maybe it is,
That might be the right word.
because you should make a movie that people don't have to try so damn hard to try and follow.
Yeah.
I think when you make it this convoluted, it's a little bit pretentious because you are
especially when the plot is not that complicated. It's just
right when it
big
doesn't
you.
actually
Like, it's
when it doesn't
ju-
actually have to be that hard.
This
It
is the-
seems like it comes off to me as a little bit pretentious, and I felt a little frustrated watching it. Like, really, like you drug me through all this, and then it ended up not being that complicated. And I just think like, you know, I can just hear people like the Nolan apology. Well, you just didn't get it, or you know, some kind of
You'll get it
backwards thing.
tomorrow.
It's
This
you'll
is
get it
the
tomorrow. You'll get it on the 5th watch or whatever. And I
cinematic
just think,
equivalent of prog rock.
yeah, sure, yeah. And I just think that's
Spicy.
kind of pretentious, and I don't
That's,
appreciate it as a moviegoer. So I didn't like that. I thought the action was cool. I thought it didn't make sense. It gets a 5.
Average
there you-
film, perfectly average.
It was
film.
an
Yeah.
average film. I don't know. Is it Christopher Nolan's worst?
I'd say so.
Might be.
I've seen
Might
all
be
his
his worst.
movies except for Following, which is his first ever movie.
I think. Yeah. I mean, that's something to say. This because Christopher Nolan movies don't usually get a 5 in my
No,
book.
Inception's at least a 7.5 for me. So yeah.
Yeah, like
Dunkirk. We're forgetting. We didn't mention Dunkirk.
Well, okay, so
We didn't-
Dunkirk is a very interesting film that we could talk about some other time, but it's not actually a film. I realized this recently. It is like a day in the life at the beach. It's so weird. There's no plot to Dunkirk at all.
Right,
There's
right.
zero character development. There are zero characters.
There's
there are people that
no
exist.
Germans.
That's cool.
there's no
There
Germans.
are people that
But
exist
if you-
in that world, but there are no characters. It's the
And Bane
weirdest
is
pilot.
film I've ever seen.
Yeah,
But-
Bane flies around for an hour.
But if you think about it, the fact that this is a Christopher Nolan movie and it's like a 5, I mean, it's pretty bad for Christopher Nolan, right?
No, it's very bad. Even
So, I
Dunkirk,
think it's
which I
my-
don't think is a movie, still gets like a fucking 8 for me. It was really
Yeah,
Yeah,
entertaining.
I really like
Right.
Dunkirk,
Yeah,
even though
agrees with
I-
that.
you're right.
think-
it's
It is true. I mean, it's not even. And I mean, it's not even a docudrama or anything like that.
It's a weird film.
It's a climate. Yeah, that's
It's
a good
just
point.
sort of
Yeah.
a-
It's 2 hours of things happening and then it ends.
It's a 2 hour.
Pretty
It's a
much.
2 hour climax told over 3 different timelines.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Yeah, it's
2
the
weeks,
same.
1 hour, 1 week. I think.
And
It's
isn't
one- it's
Kenneth
1 week.
Branagh's lipless face in that one too?
He's
Yeah.
lipless. Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
captain. He's
Yeah,
great
Dunkirk
guy.
is one of the. I would love to see a video essay on like Dunkirk because that is not a movie. I don't know what it is exactly,
yeah.
but it's not a movie.
You should do it. You should essay.
You draw pictures
Yeah.
with stick figures and everything.
Yeah.
This
You know,
is Tom Hardy in an airplane.
I used to want to do. I used to like. You remember the History Channel show where it was called Dogfights, and they'd have like all these old veterans talking about
Oh,
dogfights.
yeah, yeah.
But then they would animate the dogfights. I always thought if they got rid of all these old schlubs, sorry, United States military, but if they got rid of all these old
These
schlubs
fucking
talking
assholes.
about it and just showed the animated dogfights, that was like. A 12-year-old Ben was way more invested in that shit.
that's
I was
funny.
like, I don't care about people. I just want to see planes fight.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what Dunkirk was, and I think that's why
All
I
these
liked
old
it so
schlubs
much.
who actually experienced the dog fights. That's
man.
funny.
But
All
Yeah.
right. Well, let's end this pig. So we'll figure out our next movie. Do you guys have a movie?
Army
oh,
of the
I
Dead.
think shouldn't we?
Are we
I think
doing
we should
Invincible?
we should not do Army of the Dead. We gotta do something that's good. So I'm suggesting Invincible. It's 8 episodes, right, Jerry?
Hmm.
Yeah.
What's
let's
it on?
Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime.
Let's knock out Invincible.
Yeah, let's do
because
Invincible.
we need to get something that we actually enjoy, and that's gonna be one of them.
You enjoy that? And Jeremy, you've been watching it?
Yeah, I just finished it the
Okay.
other night. I liked it. I
Yeah,
thought it
don't
was.
tell me nothing about it. I want to go into
Okay.
That's
completely
pretty
cold.
good.
Going
I don't know
really
nothing
cold.
about it.
All right. Let's do it.
So,
Okay.
alright, Invincible like
This
that.
has been the We Like This podcast. Joined. Hopefully, we'll
You okay there?
just not do this again.
Yeah.
I'll still be more prepared. But yeah, so there you go. You can follow us on all the links down below.
Did you forget how to host?
It's been a while. We haven't done this in a couple of weeks.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
we've been busy. So, but yeah, you can follow us on our Discord down below, and then our Instagram is WLT Podcast. And catch us every Tuesday at 7:30 Central Time, 5:30 Pacific Time. All right, bye. Now I need to go walk over there and end it. So it's
I
not
know.
over yet.
All
This
right.
is like when you say bye to your friends,
Pretend
and then you
like,
walk in the same direction to go to your cars.
Yeah, pretend like it's not. Yeah.
All right, bye everybody.
Love
Oh
you.
wait, oh I'm